Well,
I sponsor this show.
I sponsor this show as a producer. So
be funny.
So be funny, the law. Go. Welcome back to the WatchTower Podcast, a new podcast brought to you by Towercast Network, the new network from Tower Productions. This is a pretty cool podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in.
First one of the year.
I've mentioned that this podcast is like the book club of podcasts, right? At least for us, we watch a film, we get together, we talk about it. Sometimes we'll watch the film together, so you'll get to hear our crazy thoughts. And like Mr. Yokomoto said, this is the first WatchTower Podcast of the year. So happy New Year if you're listening into this.
Happy 2021.
Yeah. Hey, he speaks Spanish now. Look at this.
I got a B in Spanish. Wow. That's why only half the numbers were in Spanish.
Right. Just half. That's why you got to be. Sure. I want to introduce these lovely gentlemen that you're listening to and or watching, depending on how you're consuming this. Mr. Michael Delao.
Hi.
I was gonna say more, but then I wanted to see what you were gonna do, and then do that.
I had something. Wait, I had something like planned. Like I was gonna say some stupid quote, but then I forgot. So all that came out was. It wasn't even high.
It was just the noise of him breathing, exhaling.
It was like I was mid-breath and then I had to say something witty and funny and all that came out was high. But hello, welcome to 2021. I'll be your pilot this evening.
Oh my goodness. We're going to die. We also have Mr. Christian Yokomoto Medina.
Oh, why, hello, fellas and fillets.
And Mr. Austin Young, making sure we're sounding good. I hope your camera stays on for this episode, Austin, because we all know what you're doing.
Howdy.
Wow.
These are my amazing co-hosts. We are missing the great John Eric Castro for this episode.
We do miss him.
Which is kind of sad, man. I really wanted to hear his perspective on this film and this performance particularly.
Wait,
but
since he's not here,
wow.
There you go. We have our backup actor.
We have our backup Castro.
By the way, if I can just add something onto the podcast. For all of you listening, this is also our first episode where half the group has gotten a new microphone. Exciting. I know.
Oh, yes. Hopefully it sounds finally better than my episodes.
It sounds really good. Hopefully mine
sounds really Yokomoto. Yeah, definitely. Both of you sound really good. I think we've all done something different to our setups. I know Austin and I moved around his kind of setup back home, and then my setup is like my microphone is in a new position that I'm much more comfortable with. So yeah, I think we've all done something a little different.
I guess I'll post a picture like in the corner or something. I'll put a picture of mine.
Nice. Put it in this corner. Ah, damn it! I pointed to the same direction. This corner.
You know what? Just put your hands down, please. Just put your hands down. Let's. Today we're talking about a very cool film. This is actually the Lao's choice, which is very. If you know the Lao, or if you've listened to many episodes of this show, you kind of start to get his style, this kind of artsy indie, but at the same time, very intricate and heartwarming stories. And this is definitely in that Delao vein.
You can definitely see a little Lars and Michael Delao.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, look at the mustache. Just look at the mustache right now.
Oh man,
we're talking about Craig Gillespie's Lars and the Real Girl, 2007 romantic comedy. And Lars doesn't have blue hair like Delao does, and that's the only disappointment of that film.
Yeah. I swear, Yokomoto, we had a watch party yesterday, or no, 2 days ago, just to kind of get ready for the episode and all that. Mm-hmm. Anyway. And the whole time, like at the very beginning of the film, they're like, wait, this is just Delao, like, acting.
Like, we kept telling him, like, "What? Hey, man, so how long did it take to film? Like, were you there for 6 months, or was it like it just got to that point?"
Oh my god.
It was a great film, man. I want to get into thoughts right now. I just want to kind of knock some stuff out there. It's a 2007 film written by Nancy Oliver. Nancy Oliver, I thought was really interesting. She hasn't written much else. She's done a couple of things for True Blood and TV stuff, but this was her first kind of big film, and hopefully not her last. But she really hasn't done much. She was nominated for an Academy Award for this film, kind of right off the bat, man. One of her first big films, and she got an Oscar nod and lost out to Juno.
Juno, yeah.
Which I'm okay with. Although I will say, upon completing the film, I told Dalal, like, I love Juno. Jason Reitman. He's
Diablo Cody Reitman was the
Reitman.
Yeah, Diablo Cody. No, but I mean, just any Jason Reitman film, I'll watch, man. He's one of my heroes, one of my true indie heroes. And Diablo Cody's in that realm too. I love Tully. I love anything Diablo Cody will do too, with the exception of Jennifer's Body. But we can move on.
Actually, we do have to. You do have to rewatch that one because it hits differently now than it was when it came out.
Okay. Hey, maybe we'll review it for the show. It is Diablo Cody after all, right?
Halloween
so
preview.
Yeah, right. Hey, there you go. Dia de los Muertos, man. There you go. We'll just do it for that. No, yeah, but anyways, when it comes to that, I actually told Dalal, you know what, man? I kind of feel like this should have won over Juno, and I love Juno. I love Juno. It's one of the films that encouraged me to become a filmmaker, oddly enough. But this story was just, I don't know. I felt like it was a little more Oscar worthy than Juno was.
I think mostly because Juno, when it came out, it was a phenomenon. I mean, especially like that style of dialogue. It was just of refreshing. Yeah. Although it kind of like petered out like really quick. And that's why it had all the momentum.
It did, and the cast was fantastic, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, as it is one of my favorite films of all time. But yeah, I just felt like this maybe I'm thinking of more recent Oscar years. I guess early 2000 or early 2000s was, how do I say, they were a little more forgiving. They kind of liked the punk rock-esque. See, I remember Drew Barrymore directed a film called Whip It with Ellen Page, and it was a pretty great film. I actually really enjoyed that film, and it's that same punk rock indie style of a film. So I think that just that gap, the first 10 years of the 2000s was a little more forgiving to that style.
I think it was also it leaned into that kind of
Little Miss Sunshine.
It leaned into that kind of, I guess, genre type, just because, I mean, the Oscars are about kind of pushing the medium forward as far as dialogue, scripting, and all that kind of stuff. So this one definitely felt like something that you would see now and all that, or kind of going back to those traditional stylings.
Right.
But it's that's kind of the whole point of the Oscars, to see how film evolves, to see how film
I just feel like maybe what happened is you had a lot of young voters in the Academy during those years, and that defined that kind of era for the Oscars. But regardless, I think Lars and the Real Girl was interesting in that sense, that the writer Craig Gillespie's done a ton of notable things. I mean, he's Mr. Woodcock is one of the actually his directorial debut. $1 Million Arm is a very, very, it's a heartfelt kind of Disney live action picture, which I thoroughly enjoyed. It's a baseball movie with John Hamm in the lead, if I'm not mistaken, and it does really good. I think it's John Hamm. It's John Hamm. John Hamm, and he did. It was probably one of the first leading roles I'd seen John Hamm in, and he did I, Tonya most recently with Margot Robbie in That Passion Project. He directed that. The most recent thing he's done, I should say, which we've caught a glimpse of in stills, is Disney's Cruella live action depiction of Cruella de Vil.
Oh, he's doing that one.
He's directing that. Comes out 2021 this year. So, with, if I'm not mistaken, it's Emma Stone playing Cruella de Vil.
Yes, that's Cruella.
So that should be fun. I'm looking forward to that. And I like this director, man. He's kind of new, kind of been around since Mr. Woodcock 07. So I look forward to it, man. I like him. I haven't seen a film that's disappointed me from him so far. So, Craig Gillespie. What did you guys think, man? This was an interesting picture. It was my first time watching it. The Yokomoto and Dalal. I'm sure you guys have seen it various times over the years. It seems like it's in that style.
I have the DVD itself. I actually don't know why it didn't bring it, but it's really good. It's one of those that don't be tuned off by what the premise is. Right. But once you get
give us the premise, Yokomoto. For the listeners listening in, what's the premise of this picture?
Okay, so you have Lars, and he's basically a shut-in, introvert. He does not. He's not good socially, right?
He's a hermit. Yeah.
Yes, sure. Basically. So one day he decides to kind of get his outer shell going by introducing someone new to the family. Mm-hmm. And this person is a handicapped Brazilian missionary who is also a sex doll.
Yeah, sex doll.
And the story kind of just carries on from there. Yeah.
From there on, you can imagine the natural conclusion.
Delao, I want to hear your opinion last, because mine, and I know it's one of your favorite films, and it's kind of one of your go-tos. You've told us over the year. Austin, it was your first time watching it too. And I feel like it's in that vein that you and I very much enjoy. We enjoy these indie kind of simple stories, and I think that hit home for the both of us. But I don't know, what was your kind of? You made a comment that I hope you repeat on the podcast. What did you think?
Gee Willikers, mister.
Yeah, gee Willikers, mister. No, the film itself was great. Definitely took a while to kind of get used to the premise of it. But it was kind of, towards the end, just really heartwarming how everybody just accepted Lars and Bianca for what they were and
what they went through.
And kind of what the community went through and how they all came together.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't as cheesy. I just remember the comment that you made was, man, that picture's kind of out of this world. And I thought that was interesting. For an indie, you kind of you don't hear that too much with an indie, so I thought that was interesting. And I agree with that sentiment. But yeah, I agree with you. I think on my perspective as a first-time watcher was, how did this film slide under the radar for me? This is my type of film. I don't know how
everybody.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's crazy because I remember when I first heard about this film, the biggest thing I heard was people saying I stopped watching after the first few minutes. It was too weird for me. I didn't like where it was going. And
it's true. If you can get past that awkwardness, it's awkwardness right up front. It's awkward.
What I love is that the way it was directed and the way it was written in, not only did they want to punch the characters in the story with that kind of awkward tension of the film, but they wanted to punch that audience. So that quick reverse shot, where it's them sitting down at the couch, just kind of staring in disbelief, and then it turns, and then the audience and everybody is just introduced to Bianca and that whole punch. And I loved watching you guys reacting for the first time, because it was just this awkward kind of chuckles.
Well, it's because here's the thing.
What the hell?
They say nothing is original in Hollywood. We've seen this kind of story before, in the sense that we've seen the introvert family member that they kind of want to save, but they can't, and he has this troubled past with the parents and whatnot. We've kind of seen that side, but we all expect the turn was nuts. The turn was nuts when he knocks on the door for the first time after wanting to stay away from his own brother and the wife. And then he knocks and he says, "Hey, so I met someone on the internet." And you see the characters turn that's cool. Should I believe this? Should I walk into this? Okay, I'm gonna trust it. I'm gonna walk into it. He met a weird girl somewhere.
Yeah.
And I, you're not completely wrong by thinking that, but except the girl part. Anyways, if you can get past the awkward stage. And I like that he did that. The director clearly was trying to do that. He wanted the audience to feel the awkwardness that the brother and his wife were feeling.
Yeah, and I mean, that kind of punch really brought it brought everybody to the same level of that. What do we do about this situation? And then all the emotions, the way the actors, put out their characters. Felt so sincere and so genuine and so I guess kind of heartwarming, where then the whole time you're watching the film you're wondering what's going to kind of transpire, but you see so much care in that community and you sympathize and you connect with them right away. It's almost like that shock was enough to really just kind of put you in the tone of everything that happens now makes sense and you would want to be there. I thought it was really interesting the way you reacted with the scene of the bowling alley, because you get these guys who are kind of joking around about it and making fun of it at first, and you're like, oh no, like like these jerks are coming in, and it's Lars there, and then he's with this other girl who she wants to have a relationship with him, but she's trying to also be there for him and respect him. And then it takes a very positive turn, but like, I
agree. Your exact words to that were like, no, this is a good movie, Carlos. Don't worry, it's a good movie.
Yeah, like it's a good story. Yeah, because I love the sincerity in that tone that it was able to accomplish, but not be cheesy, and it was able.
I forget that this, or maybe I forgot that this, because it was my first time watching it. I forget that this film was made in 2007, and because of that, it doesn't have this. Everybody nowadays is trying to be clever. Every writer, every director is trying to walk you through this. And it's not, some people can do it very, very, very greatly. I mean, look at Get Out. Get Out, you think you're watching this kind of, it's marketed like a horror film, but the minute you're watching it, it feels like a rom-com, and it feels like Meet the Parents, and then you get into the crazy shit, and Jordan Peele does that very crazy. So that's why when I see those guys walking in, I'm like, oh man, like we're doing good. You're going to do this to me now? Because everybody's trying to do something like that. They're trying to switch it up. And
don't you also feel like, modern drama, Oscar performance cinema is very much like, you'll be watching a story, and every time the character succeeds, it's like, how can we drop the audience so hard right now? Or like,
yes, that's what I mean. Punch him in the gut. That's exactly what I mean. And I mean, I come from, I think I told you when we finished watching it, and this is saying a lot for me. If you guys have heard of this podcast from the first episode, you know that Good Will Hunting is my favorite film of all time. And I think I told Austin and Delau, like, oh man, this has a very, especially the scenes with the therapist, I think those were my favorite scenes. It has this very Good Will Hunting undertone that I really appreciated. And the style too, the cinematography even, it's got this Gus Van Sant kind of style to it, to the direction. So maybe it was inspired by Good Will Hunting a little bit, at least for those moments. But I told you that, and then I told you I felt like the first time I watched Bernie with Jack Black. Richard Linklater did that picture. And it has this very Bernie-esque feel, the small town neighborhood, the one weirdo in the middle of it all, and then obviously it's a different kind of documentary style, but it's got that feel of this small town, the big thing that happens in the small town, and and I like that. I like that a lot. I like where its heart was at, so I appreciated that, man.
Yeah, this is one of those movies that the setting only could take place in a small town, because it has to rely on like everybody knowing everybody. And that's true. How because of the fact by the end, half point of the movie, that's exactly that interaction of the whole town kind of helping him go through this phase is actually what helps him go.
Yeah, I wondered. I kept asking myself, like, for instance, when they're going to the doctor, when they have to call the ambulance, when they're going to the mall, whatever, what have you. I kept asking myself, like, oh, is the brother and the wife calling ahead? Like, are they calling ahead for everything?
Yeah.
I had to keep asking myself that, because I thought, what are they going to do? Like, why the fuck would an ambulance come and pick them up, knowing who they're picking up? And then I realized, no, maybe they're calling ahead even for this. And then they get to the hospital for the end scene, the most kind of crazy scene in this linear story. And they say, oh, yeah, the doctor's expecting you. Like, one of the nurses kind of does an offhand comment, like, yeah, no, don't worry. The doctor's expecting them. Take them to doctor, whatever. So yeah, I thought those little moments were cool. Like, they really do come together to take the therapist's advice overall is play along with it. I thought that was interesting.
And, talking about the therapist, something that I really liked about this movie that got me since the first time I watched it was the therapist. I really like.
I'm looking for her name. I forget the actress, dude, but I kept trying to. Patricia Clarkson.
Yeah, Patricia. I really like the way she's portrayed, because you could see that it's more realistic and actually not someone trying to be like smarter than he is.
Right. Yeah,
like he's actually someone who's trying to work out what he's doing, asking him questions, giving him by his side and everything, like in a realistic way.
I agree. I think her role was interesting because it was subtle, and it didn't have
all
to
of
be
them
good.
Were.
All of them were. But I think her specifically, it was every time you saw I don't know how you guys feel, but every time I saw the therapist, every time I saw in the film, her name is Dagmar Berman. I was just happy to see her. I wanted to see what else. I wanted to see what Lars's development was through her eyes.
Yeah.
So she brought a lot of validity to the story, to what was going on.
And it's really interesting kind of that you bring up the subtlety of the performances. I think that's what charmed me the most, is that there wasn't anything over the top. There wasn't this kind of heavy explanation on things. And even that one scene where she kind of comes out and she has to explain to like his brother and his wife, or her wife. Wife, yes. That, he's like, no, like, it's not that I told him that Bianca was dead. Like, Lars told us, and Lars is the one deciding what happens. Lars is the one deciding what kind of goes on in her life and all that kind of stuff. So he's healing himself, like, I'm not doing anything. I'm just helping to facilitate him growing. And it's something that, it's kind of like, deliberately telling you, like, what's going on in the story, or like, what's happening with the characters and what they're thinking. But it felt so organic in the way that it came up, and in the way that the dialogue would bounce around each other, where you didn't see people deliberately saying like, I care about Lars. You were seeing people like talking in a very soft, understanding way that helped, grow as you met all the new characters or pieces.
I mean, quite frankly, I was shocked. I was shocked that it didn't get nominated for more things, and especially in the acting realm, because it didn't get nominated. None of the actors got nominated for an Oscar, and
it's one of those movies that, as I mentioned earlier, it's just it bombed. There was barely no mention of this, other than a couple like things that
to this day, Yokomoto, it was so hard to find. I mean, we had to. You can find it on Amazon Prime to rent, but it's not streaming anywhere. Let me put it to you this way: Yokomoto and Delao have DVDs of it because they've had it since it came out. So then I found a Blu-ray, and I was telling Delao, "Hey, there's a Blu-ray. I'm probably gonna buy it." He's like, "There's a Blu-ray? What? Like, it's hard to find. It's hard. It's not the most accessible film."
It's one of those films that I definitely wanted to bring up, and I've at least tried to bring up in my picks, because there are things that I know kind of went under the radar for a lot of people. And the sad thing is that the performances, I mean, the cinematography, I was even going to start bringing up stuff like the art direction and the costuming and how that kind of plays into the story. But like,
we have to talk about that.
So much energy was brought into it that it's a shame that less and less people are hearing about these films, and they're not being talked about more.
Let's talk about the acting. Let's start there. Let's start there, because I think, look, I think I told Delao this. I'm a massive La La Land fan, obviously, and I love Seb, and I love Ryan Gosling's performance, but I don't love him in a ton of things. I think he's the definition of a movie star. He's like Emil Hirsch, or like these guys that kind of fall under the radar after some time. Like, I don't see him. I haven't seen a film beyond La La Land, but it wasn't even Gosling's performance that took me over the top. It was
a story.
It was the story, and it was the subtleties of the subtle homages to cinema and classic musicals. But it wasn't Gosling's performance. I'm not saying I'm not a big. He's not one of my favorite actors. Let me just say that he's a great actor, and I respect his work, but there's very little films of his I've seen that have made a really big impact on me. And I know a lot of people love Drive, and I know a lot of people love a ton of other films of his.
The Notebook.
He did The Notebook. I mean, I love The Notebook, but The Notebook's just, I like it. I really do enjoy watching that film. Say what you say about me. Nick Cassavetes, I think. I mean, he's the son of John Cassavetes, dude. He's becoming a good director like his dad. So I like The Notebook, and I like Gosling in it. But I know what I'm going to get for this. But I see Gosling like I see Channing Tatum, man. I don't. He's going to be in films.
Tatum's not that bad now.
Well, now, yeah. I mean, you see films like Foxcatcher, you see like The Hateful Eight, and he's growing into his own, and I like that. But
I mean, when this movie came out, Lars and the Real Girl, his only like real big success was The Notebook.
Yeah, you guys had the benefit.
He's done is still. Sorry.
You guys had the benefit of seeing this in 07. So maybe that set the standard for you guys for Gosling.
No, but not a whole lot of people did. So that's why, when you see people, I think they go back to him because, like you said, it's a whole movie star thing. You see him coming in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
you see him playing his role well. It's not like
he's the heartthrob. Look, there's 3 movies that I've seen Gosling in that have made an impact on me. 4 actually. It's been The Place Beyond the Pines. I think he's fantastic in that film. I think that film is kind of underrated too. It's La La Land, obviously. I mean, he plays the role that he needs to play. Before it was him, it was Miles Teller, and either one probably could have worked. But I'm glad they, Gosling took it. He did this film, Crazy Stupid Love, and I really love him in that. I love him in that. It's kind of your typical rom-com, but at the same time, it's a little more than that. I don't know. It's hard to describe, but it's such a good film. It's Steve Carell has a great performance in it, and Ryan Gosling is. And number 4 really is Lars and the Real Girl. I think this is the best I've ever seen him in. Period.
I think this film really played into Gosling's strengths from what I've seen, which is that he knows how to be a good reserved character who has a lot to say but doesn't say it,
Yeah. And he's good at that. You see that in Drive.
Yeah.
You see that character, but
and not a whole lot of films use it, and not a whole lot of scripts, I guess, are made that use that well. So then what happens is that when he gets casted and you see that kind of character, it either feels overplayed or doesn't feel like it's in the right place, or it feels like the emotion is organic, and this one felt. I
feel like Gosling comes from that school of, he comes from running around with guys like Tobey Maguire and Leo. They all grew up in Hollywood together. Yeah. So literally they were friends since like the Basketball Diaries. All 3 of them come out in that movie. They've been running around Hollywood since they were kids. And I think I felt the same way about Tobey Maguire until I saw The Great Gatsby. Before that, it was Tobey Maguire, and it was fine, and it was Spider-Man. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. And then I saw him playing Nick Carraway, and I'm like, oh man, okay, Tobey Maguire still has something to say. Not that he's done much after that, but that's how I felt about Lars and the Real Girl with Gosling. I think number 1, I pointed this out, like, yo, he got fat. He gained weight for the role, and I thought that was pudgy, so authentic. Yeah, he's a little pudgy, but he's playing like that small town kind of middle-aged guy, So
you see his routine, like you could definitely see that. Yeah,
he just stays at home. Like he sits down, he eats, and then that's it.
Yeah,
that's an office job.
I don't know if that just shifted. Look, there's a difference between Lars Ryan and Crazy Stupid Love Ryan. Substantially, right? So if you haven't seen Crazy Stupid Love, he comes out shirtless and does a whole dirty dancing bit with Emma Stone.
You can imagine that.
So yeah, exactly. You can't imagine that here, and I think that just brought some authenticity to the role, man. I think he should have been nominated for this role. I really do.
I really do believe so.
I think it just kind of goes into like when you watch a film and the actor's performance accentuates the character in a way that you can detach yourself from that actor and their kind of career, other performances and all that kind of stuff. It's such a good performance from them. Yeah. And I feel like this is so different from everything else I've seen, where I don't see Ryan Gosling when I watch this film. In fact, it kind of like goes over my head sometimes when I'm rewatching it, because you just see Lars and his character.
You see Lars. That's my point. That's my point.
And it's just done so well. And like I said, it's natural, it's organic, there's nothing over the top, but it makes you connect at a very real level. Where I was gonna bring up at least my experience watching this for the first time. Some of my best films watching are always the ones that we talk hours afterwards about the film. Sometimes not even about like the technical aspects, but just the messages and what we felt and how it, life kind of came after that. And I definitely felt that with like this one. It's just something that I connected with so hard, and I think all their performances from everybody. You were even mentioning Lars's brother. I forgot what his name is.
I really wanted to talk about him in terms of the acting. Paul Schneider, man.
Yeah,
Paul Schneider did so good in this movie. I've seen him in TV. I think he did Parks and Rec a couple of seasons.
Yeah, and he's like a comedy guy. You know, he's good. You know, you see him there and all that. But this one, I mean, hits home, especially when he's talking about there's that beautiful scene when he's not kind of beating around the bush like most of the characters are throughout the movie, and he's just like, talking to his wife.
He's not a real girl.
Yeah. Or the part when he was like, my dad was emotional and I left and I didn't know what to do. And then he breaks down with his wife, and it's just so.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. That I feel like this film should have been nominated for supporting actors, for. I don't know. I don't know about the direction. I feel that like the direction felt like I said, like a kind of a Good Will Hunting, and kind of like a maybe like even like a Three Billboards kind of pace and feel.
Although I do think it is kind of important how the direction in this movie, because it on the guise of another director, this could have easily been kind of a wacky comedy.
Dude, I think you're right. Easy. But it was directed like a comedy. The timing.
It was.
The timing was
the timing, yeah.
But, just talking about
the reactions,
about, like,
how he took it in a serious tone.
Yeah.
That
it played that balance, because I mean, there's times where you see it being comedic, and then you can laugh with it, and then times where you see it being serious, and then you want to kind of pause and sit down and like watch and understand, you know.
But I want to mention a quote that the late great Roger Ebert wrote about this film, and I think he hit it on the nose. He says, "The film wisely never goes for even one moment that could be interpreted as smutty or mocking. There's so many ways it could have gone wrong that one of the film's fascinations is how adroitly it sidesteps them. Its weapon is absolute sincerity. It has a kind of purity to it." This is Roger Ebert talking about. I think he hit it on the nose, man. I think he hit it on the nose. I think the actors have a lot to do with that. You see the wife, and her role is the most endearing, and she's the one you're kind of wanting to root for the most for Lars's betterment. Lars is I want to. He's the protagonist, but you're kind of in her shoes more. You're kind of observing Lars more than you are in Lars's shoes, and I think that's on purpose. Man, let me see if I can find her name. I think she was
mostly because it tries to put you in her shoes throughout the whole movie, that you just really want him to get out there and everything.
She's the sister-in-law. She doesn't have to care that deeply. So for her to care that deeply, it's very heartwarming and very refreshing. Emily Mortimer, by the way, is her name. You've seen her in a ton of stuff. She had a pretty decent role in Shutter Island, and she came out in Hugo and Mary Poppins Returns. She's been around. And I like her, man. I think she's good, not just because she's in Scorsese movies, but she was really kind of a character.
Name drop for the bingo.
Yep. There you go. Caster, if you're listening, the name drop is there. No, but I think her character is the one I'm rooting for the most in this picture, with the brother too, because I wanted the brother to break down. I wanted to hear why he's such a hard ass and why he's, I wanted to hear that, and I'm glad I did. But this Emily Mortimer's character, I really, she brings the lightness to the film,
Mm-hmm.
Something I noticed a lot in this see-through is how important and how well developed the brother's character is. Especially him as an actor, trying to portray that character, because especially once you already know the backstory of Lars and him, where his mother died and the father kind of went through this big depression, and the brother just said, "You know what? I can't live here," so he left, and he left his brother there with his dad until he died, and then he comes back, right?
I feel like it's like this Eating Gilbert Grape. What's Eating Gilbert Grape moment? Like Johnny Depp's character, like we kind of get to see, quote unquote, Johnny Depp's character come back to the craziness and deal with the brother now. So I like that. I like that.
So, but the thing is that like throughout the movie, especially once you start discovering all these things with him, about him and everything, like you could definitely see the progression of him, like trying to be like it's him hard to understand, but at the same time, throughout the whole time, like you could see that he blames himself for having left them there in that situation, and you could see that throughout the movie how
the overwhelming
he acts.
guilt. Yeah,
and it's just these subtle things that all these characters do, and his was most noticeable this time that I saw it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a ton of stuff to kind of point out to this authenticity. Again, it's the right word is sincerity. The right word is sincerity. Yeah. I read a couple things that I wanted to bring up for the show. That I'm sure you know about these things already, since it's how big of a fan you are. But maybe this was a method thing, but to help Ryan Gosling stay in character, the doll Bianca, she was treated as a character, as an actual person. She wasn't treated as a prop. She was treated as a character. So you can imagine her sitting in a director's chair. You can imagine her sitting in makeup and hair. I mean, she was treated as a character. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
If you want to kind of like see how much she's not just like a prop and is more a character in the film, just look at like the makeup and how she looks throughout the film. It's always changing, and it's very subtle, but it's always changing from the very first time where she has a ton of makeup.
4 or 5 faces that they made for it.
I want to say 4, but I could be off on that.
There could be more. I'd point out that there's probably more, but they did mess with the hairstyles too. So maybe
they mess with the hair, they mess with the makeup, the clothing, of course, where you're seeing her kind of progress as she goes through the city. But then I love how that subtlety of like from the very beginning, it's almost like this artificial life is thrown on her of like her being all preppy with makeup and looks like a sex doll, and then goes to looking more like a real person, and then at the very end looking just pale, and you could see Lars trying to hold on to that connection.
I was gonna say, by the way, Gasoro, you might get jealous, but they took this so seriously to the point where she had her own trailer on set.
Wow, I did not know that.
So I bring that up because you guys, I'm sure everybody remembers the scene in I Am Legend when he's talking to the mannequin. I remember what I felt in that moment when Will Smith's character is talking to the mannequin. I kept looking at the mannequin and I kept thinking, is it going to come to life? Like, is it in his imagination, is it going to fucking talk? Are we going to, like, it felt so vivid at that moment. And that's what Bianca felt for me. Because of how real she was becoming to the story, she felt very vivid. And every time they put her in the frame, I was like, what's going on with her? What's she doing now? Like, I was in it, man. I was invested in it. Another thing I wanted to mention was you talk about the soundtrack for this film being this kind of this defining moment in your high school life. I remember you told us you were watching it, and the Talking Heads being a big part of it. The scenes where the Talking Heads cassette, for the party scene where he plays the Talking Heads, that was Gosling's thing. He brought the cassette in, and he thought he thought it would have been cool for the scene. So he brought the cassette in and played it, and it was his whole, a lot of improvised moments in this film that were all Gosling. Again, I think he should have been nominated. The whole thing where he's about to enter the party, that's improvised with Bianca. The most heartwarming scene of the film, which is when he's performing CPR on Margot's teddy bear.
Oh yeah.
Completely improvised on Gosling's beat. Completely improvised,
and then that adds so much more to the scenes.
Organic.
Those moments. It's funny how subtle they were, and when you watch them the first time, you're just kind of like, "Oh, this is that scene." But then you keep coming back after the years I've watched this film. But like you come back to those scenes, and they feel so warm and genuine. And you see like her having that little like kind of giggle when she's watching him kind of perform this whole thing, and she's trying to go through like her dialogue of like what's kind of going on in her life. But then any other movie I think would have punched in on her and would have shown her laughing, or would have tried to like emphasize like, oh, look what she's feeling. But this one just let life kind of like come naturally. Like, what you notice, and what you don't, you don't.
To add to your point, and what you guys are talking about right now, the doll had 9 different faces. 9. So, I mean, we're talking, and it's exactly for the reason you guys said. It's to show an evolution. She's very heavily made up. in the first scene, and by the end of it, it's a completely more natural look. But it wasn't. Yeah, sure. The end, the kind of the last scenes we see her in, it's because she's quote unquote sick, but it's a lifestyle. I think it's a lifestyle thing. She takes a more natural look because she becomes a suburban entity, almost, you know.
And it's that where when she's alive and she's going through the town, she looks like, you know, flesh tone color, very real, very like, you know, vivid, where she's living, she's going about, she's doing things, so that way they can help Lars kind of break away from her and let her kind of go on with life. So Lars has to kind of go on with his life, but then at the very end, it feels striking the differences you see in her.
I mean, you know? the kind of, they did this. I guess they've used this doll in another thing called the Graham Norton effect. You know, if you know Graham Norton, he's this popular talk show host from the UK, and they basically used the same model doll for a prank. They put Bianca, as we know her, in a bar with sunglasses, and everybody thought she was real, to the point where some guy was like, people were hitting on her, and one guy was so drawn to this doll that somebody, a friend of the dolls, was like, hey, go wait for her in the bathroom with your pants off, and he did. so this is how real this kind of like doll. I mean, we even talked about it when we were watching the film. We're like, I think Austin mentioned that's like the lightest wheelchair in the world. They can carry that anywhere with her on it. And then you were like, well, no, she's supposed to weigh. She weighs what a human is supposed to weigh. It's kind of the point.
Yeah.
So I mean, just all of those things brought a lot of authenticity to the film.
And it's kind of funny how the writer, how she came up with the story. And basically, I don't know if you guys have heard this or not, but she said that one night she was at the internet and she found the actual website, realdoll.com.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Like, she found that website and she found like this whole thing, and she just kept on playing with the idea, like, how
interesting
did this work, and how and so that's how the inception of the script.
In true indie fashion, the film was shot in 31 days. 31 days to shoot this picture.
If I'm not mistaken, I think like maybe at most like 6 locations. I want to say,
for the most part. I mean, the doctor's office, the house, the pink room, and everything in the house, his kind of garage / house, the church. Yeah, it was a small town in its veins. I mean, it had a $12 million budget, very modest budget, for that many big names. Many big names, the $12 million budget. It just shows how good the script must have been. It showed you how great it must have been of all these top name actors were willing to take a pay cut. The film has a lot of accolades in terms of, well, a lot of great critical reception, man. I mean, it's scored an 81. Everybody, the cast, I mean, has talked about how this has been one of their favorite experiences to shoot this film. Yeah, I think it was a great choice, man. I think cinema's losing that bone. I think cinema hasn't done something like that in a while.
There's this freshness, there's uniqueness to this movie that you don't really see.
I mean, definitely say that if you haven't seen this film, and I know we say it with all the films, but I think if you haven't seen this film and you're looking for something to kind of just give you a little bit more hope and warm feeling for 2021, but also be just a really nice picture, I think this one does it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it slips under the radar, man. It's really good. And Yokomoto, to your point, it made $12 million budget and it made 11 at the box office. So MGM distributed it, and it premiered at TIFF, to Toronto International Film Festival, but it didn't get any...
It's really sad how much
most indies don't. Yeah. I've been preaching for the longest time. Hopefully we get to talk about it on this podcast. One of my favorite films of all time, the films that shaped kind of my storytelling sensibilities, is this film called Liberal Arts, written and directed by Josh Radnor, and he stars in the main role with Elizabeth Olsen. I think it was the first thing I ever saw Elizabeth. I didn't even know there was a third Olsen sister until that movie. And then she became this.
You have not. Have you seen Martha, Marcy May, Marlene?
No, I've heard. And then I know she did the new Old Boy too. I haven't seen her in Old Boy either. The new Old Boy, not the classic one.
Yeah, I know.
But I fell in love with her instantly, by the way. But and then she became fucking Wanda, So she became this big star. But no, she did a lot of indie stuff, and liberal arts being one of them. It just slides under the radar, man. It slides under the radar, and like Lars and the Real Girl was that. It should have gotten more attention. It should have gotten more buzz. But it falls into that era of indie films that are hidden gems. I can wholeheartedly say that this is definitely a hidden gem, and you should watch it.
It was, what? It's really sad to kind of think about how, as much of it being a gem, and like I cherished it, and I know Yokomoto, like you held on to the DVD and you cherished it and all that. So many people like still don't kind of come back to it. Even like it was on Tubi or whatever that was, like the free movie service. And then I remember the second I said like, oh, I want to do this film, it was there, and then they're like, oh, we're gonna pull it off, and it's just like. Not even a free movie movie site like doesn't want to like hold on to it. And
I have a feeling people just watch the trailer and don't. Sometimes
they don't give it a try.
A little backstory for my situation. This movie is actually a point of contention here at this household, at my household, because my wife was one of those audience members. Where I was like, oh man, this movie's so sweet. This was just try to get into the premise, but it's sweet. Let's put it on. 15 minutes in, she just looks at me and she's like, what is this weird shit? And she told me to take it off. And
I feel like my family
does not.
I feel like my wife. I haven't shown it to her, but I feel like again, point of contention in my household is my wife is. She says you're a filmmaker and I'm a general audience member, and that's it. That's how we each view movies. And I feel like this particular that's kind of my argument though, Yoko. Once you get past the awkward, the awkward half,
you have to feel that punch. You have to feel that punch.
After the awkward half of the first act, the first half of the first act, if you can get past the first half of the first act, it feels like a general audience movie. It feels like something anybody will connect to. It is, and it's not an art house picture. It's not. I don't think it's an art house picture. I wouldn't throw it in that category.
And it was funny because I remember, Carlos, you watching it. I think you were like, "Is it going to take some really wacky turn?" Because you were like, "Oh no!"
I was waiting for it. Yeah, I was waiting for it.
It was like I think after we were introduced to Bianca, you were like, oh no, let me guess. The title's true. She is a real girl. Oh my God, my camera died. The point is,
I thought it was going to take that route. I thought it was going to take the route of, or the Lao, should we pause?
Oh no, you can keep going because I can hear you.
I thought it was going to take this route. Now we have two people with the cameras off, Yoko, and I don't understand why.
Hey, don't worry. The camera only goes for the pretty ones.
Give me 30 seconds.
Yeah, there you go. No, but I think that I was expecting it to take this turn because you see films like The Joker. The Joker did it. It's not a new thing, and it's not very. I mean, it could be clever, I guess, but it's not. It's very common technique in storytelling. They were never really there. They were never really there. That's a very common technique in storytelling. The Joker just did it with the girl, with the quote unquote love interest. And I thought that's what it was going to do. I thought it was like, oh, it's an actual girl and there's an awkwardness and it's going to be explained. I thought that's what it was going to do. I'm glad it didn't. I'm glad it didn't.
The best way that I could tell people, kind of like warn them about hanging on in there, is that you have to see yourself as one of the town's members.
Yeah.
Like once the town members kind of like get the idea, okay, so we're here to help them out.
Yeah.
And once that happens, the whole town converts.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you can see that the film trying to connect with the audience in that way from the first moments after they introduce her, where then the brother and the wife are just like there in the kitchen. They're like, what are we going to do? I have to take my brother to a doctor.
I got to take him to a hospital.
I can't afford that. What are we going to do? It's my little brother. Like, oh my God. But then right after that, you see that they're just trying to deal with this like awkward tension of it all, especially like he's sitting her down at the table. And I love that it used humor as a way to kind of like help you glide past this really awkward phase of the film. And then once it does that, once you're past the hump and you're like, okay, like now I understand, like this is what's happening, and this is everybody trying to cope with it and trying to help Lars, then it just feels so heartwarming. Then you're just so touched by all the micro actions that kind of come around him or that happened, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Before we run out of time, I want to talk to you guys about kind of some of the technical aspects in a very, very non-technical film. Another name drop. The great Martin Scorsese once said, "I think editing is when you can see the editing, but it's also when you can't." And it's a very general thing amongst filmmakers. When you can't see the editing, it's probably great editing.
Yeah.
I want to talk to Austin about that, and then I'd like for you to elaborate a little bit on the cinematography, because it's kind of a beautiful picture too. Aesthetically, it's the woods and the snow, and it's shot very simply. I'm willing to bet money that they shot the entire film on a 35 millimeter lens, and again, I'm being facetious, but that's how it looks. Like it's kind of straight to the point. But Austin, did you notice anything in the editing that was noteworthy or wasn't, which is a good thing in editing sometimes? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, damn it, dude. Hello? Okay.
There you go.
I'll cut that out.
We got you.
No, it's just my fucking mic. No, there really wasn't anything like. No, there really wasn't anything like that stood out greatly with it. Like you say, if you really don't notice it, there definitely was a really great flow between the conversations on the different cutbacks between the different stuff, especially like, you know, when Lars shows up with Bianca for the first time, and kind of just that flow of capturing that awkwardness between the brother and him. So it's just one of those things where you notice the flow a little bit, but not necessarily too much, and that's what you really are looking for.
She seems to be very, very the editor, I mean, her name's Tatiana Regal. She seems to be very loyal to Craig Gillespie. She's doing Corella. She did I, Tonya, $1 Million Arm. She's done pretty much every one of his films, but she's also kind of did below the line stuff in like Pulp Fiction, you know, and like,
really?
yeah. So she kind of worked on different things. Bad Words with Jason Bateman and stuff like that.
That's
so
a really good movie.
Yeah, The Men Who Stare at Goats. So she's done a kind of other pretty great films. So I agree with that. I think indie films, the technical aspects of indie films are so underrated. Guys, making a movie is hard. We're all filmmakers in this group, and we can attest to the fact that making an indie film like Lars and the Real Girl that looks easy is not. In fact, some of the technical aspects, like the seamless editing, like the quick dialogue, like the timing, the comedic timing, it's hard, man. It's hard. Yeah. So for a film to pull that off, I think the technical aspects have to be. Just because it's not Marvel or Star Wars doesn't mean it didn't take some significant thought into the technical aspects to this film. Delau, as far as the cinematography goes, Adam Kimmel was the DP for this. He's done stuff like Capote. Capote is a fantastic film, one of Philip Seymour Hoffman's best, if you haven't seen it. He did Capote, Never Let Me Go. He did a lot of stuff, man. But he's one of those, again, another one of those DPs that falls under the radar. Any thoughts on cinematography?
I think cinematography, and the more I've been kind of looking into the craft and what people do with it, the more I see that the less you notice it, the better it is. And for stuff like this, everything's very deliberate to you because, okay, how do I frame this in a way that doesn't make me look stupid? I think that the dialogue tries to be very subtle, but it tries to be very clever in the way that it displays the interactions, the tensions, the inner feelings of each of the characters without deliberately like saying it.
Yeah.
And I think all the cinematography is trying to do is really like help to bring that home in a way that you sympathize for Lars, because a lot of the opening shots are like him inside. It's very closed off. It's dark. They have these shots that are very well lit because you can see how the light only really illuminates him in a way that may be unnatural for sunlight to do, but it pulls it off in such a natural way where you can see it's like the only little glimmer of life is Lars, but he's just trapped in this very dark place.
Bilal and I have this ongoing conversation whenever we watch movies together. It's become a bit where anytime we see a Rembrandt we pointed out that either I pointed out or he points it out, and there's a particular shot that really caught my attention. Was the first time he's mentioning Bianca to them when he rings the doorbell.
Mm-hmm.
It's disguised as a porch light. The porch light's kind of giving the Rembrandt, but it looks like moonlight a little bit too. So I think the blending of the lighting, but it illuminates his face in a way that we haven't seen yet.
And the thing is, for stuff like that, it all is disguised as either practicals or natural lighting, but you can see them using the lighting in a way that is trying to progress the story and progress, like, I guess, that character. That would have also been an extremely hard shot to light, just because you're thinking of mixing moonlight with the interior and how it's warm and him opening the door. It's such a tight frame, but they found a way to use it, the practical light, and probably like
if you're a filmmaker, you know. If you're a filmmaker, you know what it is. You see the light and you see like, okay, it's a porch light, but I think really not. But
a lot of it was just done in a way that helps emphasize Lars' progression. I think like when you look at the early shots, you can see how it looks kind of claustrophobic from his perspective. It's very tight. He's uncomfortable.
I call it the wood grain panel cinematography. That's what I call it. And if it just gives me this wood grain. Anytime you see a wood grain panel, you think to these old suburban homes. And most indie films have that. But primarily for budget purpose. You watch Juno and you look at the inside of Juno's house, and it's the same thing. It's the same type of cinematography. It's the same type of lighting until you're in Jennifer Garner and Jason Bateman's home, and it's this flood of white lights that isn't fluorescent or isn't tungsten. I mean, it's completely fluorescent. So, it's an indie thing. I know it's an indie thing for indie filmmakers that appreciate indie films. It's an indie thing.
Also, I just want to give one last nod before we kind of cap up everything. I really like the work. I guess the working together of like the costume, wardrobe, props department in how they show. Lars has this thing where basically at the beginning of the film, he's really appalled by touch and human interaction, and and you would think like, oh well, he just likes to be alone, but then he describes it as like, no, physically this burns, it's uncomfortable. And it's amazing to see how as the film progresses, you see more and more layers come off him until you see at the very end he only has this really, really thin kind of sweater and that pink shirt that he's been wearing the whole film, but like underneath all of his clothes. And how that
I think,
like,
correct me if I'm wrong though, because I might have just missed it, but I feel like that article of clothing was his mom's, right? The one he wears under everything.
I think that's what they want you to think. Yeah,
there's a scarf. There's like the scarf kind of towel that he can hang on to.
No. There's the blanket.
It's like a,
but
like
there's like an undershirt.
It's like a pajama shirt. It's like a pajama shirt.
But it's very small. It's very small, but it's always on him. And if you look, you can even see it like in the collar and all that. Like
maybe they never mention it. Maybe they never mentioned where it came from. But I feel like it belonged to the mom. I'm willing to bet money it belonged to the mom, and that's why he wears it all the time. If we go deeper into that theory. I'd argue that that's why he doesn't like being touched, because it's going to somehow taint his mom, like who he has wrapped around him in this article of clothing. Like, I feel like that's kind of the love that he was missing, right? By not having his mom around and his dad going through this episode.
Yeah, he was, I was telling the guys to be very aware when watching the film, look at the color pink because it's used so deliberately. And it's such a simple, like, costume adjustment to each of the characters. But when it's brought up, you see progression of Lars's character and also progression of the community. It's a really, I think, interesting way to subtly show the changes that are going on, and also how Lars had this connection with, like you said, like his mom. I went over the top, like I treated it like it was a drinking game. Like anytime something pink would come into the frame that was significant, pink.
Even it was Peter, it was pink, the Lao pink, there's pink. And then we started talking about it at the end, and I love the Lao's theory. Do you kind of want to talk about that, like specifically what you said? I think was really cool.
I think what it's trying to show is love, and how at the very beginning, if you think of that pink shirt being under Lars's shirt, love is something that he kind of never really receives, but he also kind of holds to himself.
He internalizes it.
Yeah, he internalizes it, that there's this kind of like love
cool,
that is not able to kind of like go beyond himself. That's why even at the very beginning, somebody gives him that nice lady gives him a flower and says, give this to somebody who looks nice. And then he sees
tosses it.
the girl and he just throws it immediately. Like he doesn't want to share that outward. And you see that when Bianca comes in, he immediately wants to put her in this pink room because all of his love is just kind of going to her, and everything that he cares about, he's trying to give her that's good. He's trying to help her get clothes and all that. And as the film kind of progresses forward, you see that he's able to put more pink outwardly, and he's able to kind of like start loving outside of himself. He has like a pink bowling ball. He starts wearing like a pink rose at the very end, showing that it's able to go beyond him now, that it's not just all bottled up.
It's an interesting thing because the Kelly Garner character, I think, it was Kelly Garner who plays Margot, kind of the longing love interest. She's always wearing pink. And that's something. It's an observation I made the minute that Lau told me, like, okay, once we see her in a few scenes, she's always wearing some type of muted pink. It's muted pink until the funeral.
Yeah.
And we get to the funeral, and she's dressed in this almost not hot pink, not quite.
But it's like a brighter pink. It's a
brighter pink. It's more vibrant. It's more outwardly, and Lars is wearing it too in the corset or the flower. I mean, so. I knew if you paid attention to that, then you knew that she was gonna somehow, in the love
find her way
to Lars and vice versa. So,
and if you also look at it from
that
theory too, I mean, you can see that her character is always outwardly putting out like love for Lars
she's
care. Where then, as she's wearing it, it's almost like trying to show like, I can't be there directly for you, but even when people were like, oh, that's weird, right? That he like keeps Bianca around. He's like, well, that's just his thing, and we're caring about him and all that. Like when she's talking to a couple at the party, you see that her character is always very caring, always very loving, and she's ready to share that with Lars, even if Lars isn't there yet. And it's I think going with that theory, it just makes the film so much more sweeter and sincere.
I mean, I'm glad you pointed it out, because I'm sure would have, again, that detail would have gone under the radar if you didn't tell me about it.
And that color is actually like so prominent in the movie that the posters themselves feature this big pink as a wallpaper,
like the pink room. Yeah, that's where they're in the pink room. Yeah, there's something just so sweet about the film. I mean, that's why I kind of wanted to share it to you guys, and hopefully for whoever's watching, if you haven't seen it, which I'm going to flip a quarter and say you probably haven't. I think you should definitely give it a try. It's something very sweet, very sincere. Sure, it's going to have a very awkward punch at the beginning, but that's what it's meant to do. And you just got to trust that it's going to carry you to the right place.
And you know what? I think when you've seen enough indie pictures, and I know I'm throwing that word around a lot, and I'm doing it with thought. I'm not just throwing that word around. When you've seen enough indie pictures, a lot of them have that moment. So you're kind of used to it. You can kind of, there's some movies that like feel awkward and you wonder why, and some do a bad job. You just feel awkward through the whole film, and most films have a reason for it. So when you're an indie filmmaker, like you're an indie lover, you're used to that feeling with indie films. So for us, it's easy, but if you're kind of just general audience member, get past it. I promise you it'll be worth it. Guys, any last thoughts before we move on to the Tower Crown on Lars and the Real Girl?
I'm glad we got to talk about it. It gave me the warm fuzzies. Hopefully it gave other people warm fuzzies, whatever that is. And that's my
something really cool. Something really cool about this is that when you talk about this to other people, like you'll know exactly the people that have seen it. Right. Because every single person that I've talked to that I've like, oh yeah, have you seen the Lars and the Real Girl? That person's like, oh yeah, that movie's really good.
Yeah.
And it reminded me a lot when Michael DeLao pitched this movie to watch. I don't know if you noticed, but I was like, oh yeah, that was also
because every person who knows about it is like, it hits me so well. Like it's
a hidden gem.
It's definitely a hidden gem.
Austin, any final thoughts on Lars and the Real Girl?
Just get through the awkwardness.
Yeah,
it's worth it. It really is.
As any audience member, just get past that. and trust that the film's going to take you in the right place, because it really does. And yeah,
I'm gonna throw this out there. I think this film provided. I mean, Disney hasn't done wrong yet, dude. In my eyes, anyways. But I'm a Disney nut, right? So once Cruella hits big, people are gonna revisit this movie because they're gonna revisit Craig Gillespie. So I'm willing to be. There's gonna be a resurgence of this film because of Cruella. I hope. Hopefully.
So. Okay, and. I there's actually one last question I wanted to kind of bring to everybody, because I know we're going to talk about it after we watch the film, but we really didn't.
Yeah.
The last scene with Bianca at the lake, theories, ideas, or what you kind of thought happened, because it's really meant to kind of be obscured. When you see it, you're seeing it from a distance. What do you think happened to Bianca? I remember we were joking that he was going to drown her, but
no, I don't think I felt, because my immediate thing is like, why is the brother freaking out so much? Like, I know it's cold, I know it's a lake, I know it's water, but I didn't fear for Lars, and I feel like the brother was like, what are you doing? So I don't know if the brother's reaction was, what's happening with Bianca because now he's invested, or oh shit, something's going to happen to Lars. Whatever it was, I just didn't think it was appropriate for that. I just felt like this immediacy that we needed to feel, but I was honestly, the way he was carrying her and the way he was kind of laying her in the water, I was expecting I said baptism when I saw him kind of like dip the head, but I was expecting more of a Viking funeral type of thing. I swear I was expecting. I mean,
it's aggressive, but. There's, when I watched this, like with my family, they were always saying like, well, isn't like a baptism supposed to be kind of like a rebirth? And that's definitely what they saw kind of with that last scene of it just being like a rebirth. That's very painful for Lars, but that was almost for him. And if you think about the film being like Lars being able to vicariously deal with his own issues, especially with like the therapist and all that, and Bianca just being that placeholder so he could deal with
that. I told you, I said this while we were watching. I said she's the spitting image of him, or like her upbringing is the spitting image of his.
Yeah.
Her parents died when she was a baby, that whole thing, and just a bunch of the kind of little cues. So because of that, I think you're right. I said baptism when we saw the scene. I was like, oh, like a baptism? But it didn't dawn on me the way you're pointing it out. So I think that's a really good theory.
I think it's Lars trying to like be reborn by almost letting her go. And it's really interesting how that whole scene kind of came together. I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up because I think it was meant to be kind of obscured, that if you watched it a few times, then you'd have like, why is he in the water, like, especially after like, saying goodbye to her with the kiss, you thought it would just end at the kiss, but
I buy it. I think Yokomoto, I don't know. Do you have a,
I kind of between the same one that you're with, Michael. But just recently I kind of noticed that there's also this big theme of him seeing himself basically as a boy becoming a man, because especially all the talks that he has with his brother
a lot,
and
so with this rebirth thing,
oh my god, what the
and with this rebirth thing at the end, it could basically be his transition from boy to man. And
I think
being able to love someone else.
I'm willing to buy the Laos theory a little more, especially because the supernatural, like there's a church aspect to this film because they go to church and they're avid church members and stuff like that. But I feel like that theory could have been explored more. Well, I feel like right now
I think it was in a way, because that's why I reacted so viscerally. But like, if you think about it, he's showing her like the park that they used to play at, and he's taking her around everywhere, and then they're going on dates and all that. And it was almost like when they showed Lars what a real relationship is, which it's not, oh, this person loves you and sits and waits for you, and then you come back and you just have fun with her. It's like, no, this person goes and gets a job, they volunteer, they have events. Then it's like, wait a minute, that's not what I asked for. Like, I asked for,
in that lens, I think
and then
so.
Even that conversation he has with his brother, like, I heard that there's this coming of age ritual. Like, did
sex?
you ever do that? Yeah, like, is it sex? Like, it's sex, isn't it? And it's like, it's having
it is.
The fact that there is a non-sexual thing with Bianca.
Right.
An asexual relationship.
I think
the
that's
whole
why
thing, but I think that's part of the boy theory. I think that's part of Lars being a boy theory, because his original mentality, everybody's thought is he's having sex with this doll, but his original thing is, oh, she's extremely religious. Can she stay in this room while I stay in mine?
Yeah,
because he doesn't want to complicate that relationship with sex. That's part of being an adult. That's part of being,
also. If you think about like his relationship with his family before, his father really was absent as a caregiver or somebody to give Lars affection. That's kind of like why he's so stunted. If you think about it, he just never went through like a proper kind of like upbringing or childhood or relationships or connection, because the person taking care of him was so absent in his own grief and pain and all that. So this was his way to kind of grow,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great.
This
film.
Is great, man. There's
you
can read into this. You can really read into this film. Without further ado, we're a little over an hour, and I know our listeners are
itching
wondering,
to get home to their wives.
Well, yes, no, but if you voted for the Tower Crown, that's what we're getting into. So I think it's about that time, Mr. Yokomoto.
Oh, well, it's about that time. Oh, all right. So for this beginning of the year, we decided to, since we were watching a Ryan Gosling independent film, we wanted to celebrate Ryan Gosling and decided to ask you guys, what was his best performance? So for the poll on the Facebook, what we put was, let me bring it up over here. So we had La La Land, Crazy Stupid Love, Drive, and The Nice Guys.
I love that you used all the meme pictures of Ryan Gosling. It's all his memes, just with the exception of the Notebook one, right?
They're really cool. He is a meme guy.
Yeah, he's a meme.
So
what's the verdict, Mr. Yokomoto?
And this is what y'all choose. And it's going to be Drive against La La Land.
Of course.
We know that our good senor Carlos is not a fan of La La Land whatsoever. It's probably
fuck that movie.
Your least favorite performance from anybody. I'd say it's your least favorite film.
Yeah,
it's personally one of my most disappointing films.
It's the death of cinema. It's the death of cinema in one movie.
More like La La Schmand. Anyway, so we're gonna have. I'm moderating this time, and Mr. Yokomoto, you're up for La La Land, right? It's a tough competition.
I could do La La Land.
All right.
If that's what
but I can't do Drive, so no, we're not going to do this.
you have to. You have to.
Okay, no. If you wish,
if you want, you could do La La Land. But okay. But here's
it's going to be a much better match. I want somebody to prove me wrong about Drive.
Yes.
I really do, because it's didn't make an impact on me as much as it does on other people. So I want to know why.
And for 2021, I'm just going to make sure that there's clarity. I'm going to really be basing this one off of Ryan Gosling's performance. So go ahead and talk to me about what they did well with the direction, art style, and all that. But my points and where I want to kind of give the winner to is why you think that this one was really his best performance and highlights him either as an actor or highlights the progression as an actor. So that's how we're starting 2021. I'm going to be strict about
this. All I'm going to say is that cinque, yes.
You have the upper hand in that regard, Yokomoto, I might say.
Okay, so right. Who wants to go first on this mighty adventure?
I'll kick it off. First. Okay.
Oh. Okay, I'll do it.
Oh my God, it's a Canadian standoff. Anyway.
Ow.
Oh no.
That's what you get for being sorry.
It's called improvisation, sir.
All right, Drive.
All right, so Drive. I want to say this movie Just in general, first, this movie is just great. It oozes awesomeness. And Ryan Gosling is that cherry on top of that awesomeness. Because it is his personality, his charm that really brings what is mostly a silent character, a character that doesn't even have a name. He's just referred as the driver. He, especially that beginning scene where he barely has like any dialogue at all. You are with him. You know exactly what he's in for. You know his motive. You know his. You know what he's gonna do. That he knows what he's good at, and that tells you everything at the beginning scene. And it just his charisma just brings something that could have been lost in anybody as a wooden actor. He brings everything. He brings the whole style to this movie.
So here's the thing about Drive. Here's here's what I feel like is going on with it for me. I think, let me put it to you this way: there's a fine line in I'm gonna sound like a pretentious asshole. There's a fine line between cinema and movies for me. There just is. Okay. And what I mean by that is like I'm going to put my dad as an example. My dad loves these action thrillers, Taken, Rush Hour, anything with Liam Neeson in it nowadays, or the guy from The Transporter, or The Transporter by that for that argument. And I feel like I wouldn't screen Citizen Kane for my dad because he's just not going to get it. He's just not going to care. He's probably going to fall asleep through it. I screened Chinatown for him, which was a nice medium, so it's that type of thing. I'd screen Drive for him because I know that's what it is. I'd screen Drive for him. I wouldn't tell people to watch this film with passion. I'd say, well, if you want to have a good Saturday night with your pops, watch Drive. And that's how I would kind of feel about Drive. And Gosling's performance, like I said before, I feel like he hasn't been the guy that's convinced me. He's fine, and I like him. And post La La Land, post First Man, I'll probably watch anything he does. But he's starting to be typecast as the silent guy, and that's what I love about him in La La Land. Because I saw The Place Beyond the Pines very close to seeing Drive. I saw those two films probably back to back. And it's the same role. It's the quiet guy who doesn't know, who knows what he's doing, who knows what he's good at, who knows that he has to do something for his lifestyle to either better it, and it might be the wrong thing to do morally, but he's good at it, so he's going to do it anyways. To me, there's no passion there. There's no sincerity in the role. And La La Land, Seb equals passion. There's not a role that Gosling has played that has been as passionate as Seb. An important note here is that Gosling was nominated for an Academy Award for La La Land for Best Acting. Drive fell into that category of like, it's a very cool cult classic for a lot of people, and if you love cinema, you love Drive. And I have friends that love it and swear by it, but it didn't get a ton of Academy buzz. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Yokomoto. He didn't get a nod for Drive.
No, he did not.
And Gosling, even in later films, look, he did La La Land, and I'll be the first to say I love Damien Chazelle, but First Man was kind of a disappointment. It wasn't La La Land. It was the complete opposite of La La Land, and it was Gosling going back to the silent type roles. He plays Armstrong in that way. He just plays him as the quiet, strong, silent type. I want to see Gosling do something different, and I think La La Land was that. He didn't prove to me that he's a great actor with La La Land, by the way. He just proved to me that he could play something passionate. Look, you could have put somebody. Mia next to Seb looks young. Seb looks like the guy in his mid-30s who just hasn't gotten over his obsession, right? But you could have put this young guy. Miles Teller was up for the role before Gosling went, and it would have been believable. It would have been fine. I would have accepted it. But Gosling brought this this undying passion. In fact, I'd argue that Seb is more passionate than Mia about what he loves, and Gosling brought that for me. He brought that to the. Was it an Oscar-worthy performance? I don't know. He still hasn't proved anything to me that I don't already know about the guy, but at the very least, he showed me that he can be the quick, witty, dialogue-filled guy, and do it eloquently. He's got range, and now I know Gosling has range because of La La Land. Something that Drive didn't do for me,
Okay, so we're talking about some of the personas from Ryan Gosling, right?
Sure.
So basically, the persona that you're describing, it's more quick-witted, more extroverted, more out there type of person. Well, the thing is, I would give it to you that he is good in La La Land, and I love him in this movie. But he did it better in The Nice Guys. He's way better quick-witted. He has way better comedic timing.
I'm of this camp,
persona,
Yokomoto. I feel the obligation to tell you. I saw the first 10 minutes of Nice Guys, and I couldn't get through it, so I wouldn't know.
So you're gonna judge a whole performance just by 10 minutes where he's barely.
If my girlfriend can judge me by the first 10 minutes, I think anybody can. Okay.
It's one of those movies that and I'm glad it was in the poll.
minutes.
I'm glad it was in the poll because I probably would have watched it if it would have won. But it's another one of those movies that when it came out, it felt like this wacky kind of dark comedy. And I like those, I'm really into it.
I forget that you don't like what's his name, the director.
Who's the director? Who directed? Oh, it's Shane Black, isn't it?
Yeah, Shane Black.
Yeah,
I forget that you don't like him. But apart from that, the thing is that his character, though, he is way better of that type of character, of the quick-witted, outgoing persona in The Nice Guys. Now, as far as if we go at the silent type, the person who was gonna get this job done, Drive is the ultimate of that persona that he has. He encapsulates every single point. That's where he perfected that type of persona. Then he brought it out in his rest of the movies why? Because he perfected it in that movie. And this year, the year that the Drive came out, it was a Gosling sauce, because the beginning we had Crazy Stupid Love, then we had Drive, and we also had The Ides of March. And the thing is, this was his most important role that defined him for this new era, because he culminated that point of first of all being able to communicate with someone else, Carey Mulligan in that case.
Right.
So much with giving a smile, with giving
I like Carey Mulligan.
a choice, just a choice look. Told you a lot of what his character was.
I think this is the perfect debate, because I think you and I and Castro should have been here to break this tie, because I think a lot of actors will argue that acting is if it's the more subtle the better, and I agree with that depending on the story, but I think, let me put it to you this way. Gosling has been nominated for Golden Globes, for SAG Actor Awards, for SAG Awards, for Academy Awards. I mean, and it wasn't until La La Land that he won his first Golden Globe, his first major award. And I point that out because I've only seen Gosling do this outward thing in 3 films. I've seen him do it in The Notebook for the first act, for the first 2 acts. Yeah, for the first act and a half, you see him in The Notebook be this outward, funny, quirky guy with Kevin Connolly's character as the friend, and him hanging on to the rail of the Ferris wheel. You see him in that, and it makes The Notebook pleasant for that reason. Apart from the fact that Rachel McAdams is the most gorgeous creature on this earth, you see that from Gosling. And then you see it again in Crazy Stupid Love, and it's like, oh, all right, he's being witty, and he's being like this guy at the bar that picks up chicks, and all right, this is fun, man. And then he teaches Carell his ways, and I like that. And then you see it in La La Land, and it's like, why aren't you doing more like this? Why are you?
Well, he did do more. The Nice Guys.
With The Nice Guys, yeah, sure. But that's what I mean. But I mean, look, if you put him on the scale, he has more of the strong silent type than he does of these quick witty things. And people are recognizing, and let me rephrase that: critics, the Academy, the industry is recognizing the quick witty ones more than the strong silent ones. And that's just on an overall big picture of Gosling's career so far.
In popularity, he's actually known way more by him as a silent persona.
No, he's known as the heartthrob. He's known as the heartthrob.
As a heartthrob, but not always because he talks. He's a heartthrob. He can be silent, and he looks pretty.
Isn't there? We're talking about memes earlier. Isn't the meme the whole "Hey girl," Gosling thing? You know?
But no, he does almost. All of those memes wasn't exactly him speaking. I mean, he speaks one word, but then again, it's about him looking at you.
I think if Gosling is in character, look, Gosling has reached superstardom status. Okay, so he's, in my eyes and the world's eyes right now, he's a movie star. He's the heartthrob movie star. And I was glad that when he did La La Land, he showed this other range. And immediately jumped back into this old thing, right? But he's the heartthrob movie star. That's what the world knows him as right now, till this day. But I think if you watch an actor's career, the number one thing an actor doesn't want to do, unless you're Liam Neeson, unless you're Jason Statham, is be typecast. And if Gosling's not, and maybe this is why he's trying to mix it up, right? Which is smart. But if he wasn't careful, he was going to be cast in that role for the rest of his life. And I wouldn't want to see him in that role for the rest of his life. I'd dismiss him. I would quickly dismiss Gosling if that's all the types of films I saw him in. But I don't dismiss him because I think the ability to show his range as somebody that could probably deliver some pretty good Sorkin dialogue, I'm sold. You know what I mean? And it's because of films like Crazy Stupid Love and La La Land that does that. I mean, when you see, there's even a meme of La La Land when he's like telling me it's not background music, it's chaos, and it's, you see the passion in Seb, and you see the passion in him and his character for the love of jazz. I have never seen Gosling in anything like that before.
But although we just kind of my last point, if we do go by iconic characters, in the end, it does go back to Drive, because it is him and the persona that he has in this movie. Thanks to him, everybody knows exactly how he wears that jacket, how he uses the hammer, and he became a Halloween costume, because everybody knows the icon of what he did with that character.
I'm gonna counter that, Yokomoto, with the fact that in terms of iconic, Drive is iconic to one camp. Drive is iconic to Drive. Drive is iconic to Drive fans. La La Land is iconic to cinema lovers and to general audience members. So I'd point out that Seb is more iconic. I'd argue that Seb is more iconic because of that, because not only has he become a meme, but that's just Gosling being a meme, but his style in La La Land, how he dresses, the wool suit, the thin tie, it's become recognizable a lot more, especially when you see them in the pose, in the classic La La Land pose when they're dancing on Griffith. So I'd argue that to both camps, to the general audience member camp and to people who appreciate cinema, La La Land and Seb are more iconic, and the Drive fans are just the Drive fans. Like, that's just that one. I don't want to call it a cult, because it's more than a cult. It's a popular film, but it's just the Drive fans.
I would believe you there, but the thing is that the Drive actually was a big hit when it came out. Actually, a lot of people went to see this movie.
Okay, I don't deny that.
Okay. Are you ready for the final question, I guess, on my end, to kind of help for tie breaking? How necessary was Gosling for your film?
Austin, do you want to do it or do I? Necessary?
Yeah. How much do you feel like this could not be played by anybody else, and that's why this is Gosling, you needed him for this part, like you said. Well, I'm not gonna say anything else, but yeah, that's my question, because right now we're at a tie. I'll say that much.
Do you want to go?
You go for it, Yoko.
Canadian standoff. Right. Break it.
All right. The reason why I believe Ryan Gosling was necessary for this role is that the simple fact that his charm and his ability to attract people to him is way important if you're gonna have a character that's gonna be silent, that has to be sturdy. And if it wasn't for his ability to attract people to him, to actually take him to this journey from vengeance, love, and the action of this journey of violence, if it was going to be someone that was going to keep someone's attention, the audience's attention, was going to be this person, Ryan Gosling.
I will say this, Yokomoto, about Drive. I feel like, if I'm being quite honest, I feel like anybody could play that role. Anybody who's in action, I feel Mark Wahlberg could play this role. I feel, fucking what's his name? Dwayne Johnson could have played this role. But no, let me finish my sentiment. Anybody could play this role. Any action star could have played this role. But Gosling brought it to a respectable movie standard, and that's what I mean. Like there's a difference between but anybody could have played it. The story could have been the same with anybody playing it. What I mean, and I feel when a movie becomes a classic when people are talking about it immediately after they see it and years after. And though Drive has that, La La Land has become like this staple amongst Hollywood producers and amongst Hollywood actors and amongst people who love cinema and love musicals. And it's like saying, what if Humphrey Bogart could Humphrey Bogart be replaced by Clark Gable for Casablanca? No, you can't. He can't, because it's a classic film. It's a staple in Hollywood. La La Land has been fast tracked to be a staple in Hollywood. It's sure Drive was probably discussed as one of the best films of that year, and there's a following and people respect it and people love it. But La La Land is going to be talked about for years to come. And a lot of people, not myself, I will admit, a lot of people argued that Gosling should have won the Oscar for La La Land. He was nominated at the end of the day. There was better performances that year. I'm glad Casey Affleck won, actually. We should talk about Manchester by the Sea in this podcast, by the way. But yeah, I think it's going to be a staple in Hollywood for years to come, and you can't have a staple in Hollywood without the components. One of the two main components is Gosling.
Quick
counter. You can't have it. You can't have La La Land without it.
Almost immediately, the month after this movie came out, La La Land came out, there was tremendous backlash because for a lot of people, Ryan Gosling was not the perfect fit.
I'm wondering why, because I think Gosling as an actor, this movie was formative for him for future films, and let me say why. This is my last point. He learned how to dance for this film. Took extensive months to play the piano. There was no piano extra. There was no secondhand extra. He played the piano for all the scenes live, for the most part. He brushed up on his singing, because I mean, if you don't know, Gosling was part of the Mickey Mouse Club as a kid. He sang, he danced, he did it all. And you can find a video, by the way, of Gosling dancing as like a fucking 13-year-old or whatever. It's kind of funny. But anyways, he was like a break dancer. Anyways, all of these skills refined him as an actor more than Drive did. All of these skills have now presented. If he wants to go do a Broadway show tomorrow, he can. He has the discipline. He has the skills. he didn't. You didn't have to have the voice of Frank Sinatra to play Seb, because that wasn't the role. It wasn't about the voice. It was about the character and singing how the character is feeling internally. So I think all of these skills refined Gosling to be a better actor, and therefore make a great cinematic film. I don't think driving a Mustang for 2 hours refined his skills as an actor.
It was way more than that. You know.
Mic drop.
I know, man.
That's
Come
my
on,
final.
yellow hair.
No. Go ahead.
That's my final thing.
I know I'm right. And all I'm gonna say to finalize.
I love the confidence.
Is-
Yoko. Please.
All I'm gonna say to finalize my point is, fuck you. I'm right.
Nice.
Is that from the film?
No.
Oh,
That's just the Yoko
that's
Moto
just
exclusive.
Fuck me, right? That's just fuck me. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Señor Azul.
Senora Azul.
Gracias. I understood that.
You did get a B in Spanish.
I did get a B in Spanish. That's why it took so long for me to hear Azul. I've heard this. Man, you.
Well,
you
while he
guys,
tallies up, what do you, Austin? Would you like to give an opinion?
No, because
You
you
don't
don't want
wanna
his
hear my
opinion.
opinion.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I would like
we
to
saw
hear the
Drive
voice of
together,
God.
I think, right, Austin? I think we saw Drive together.
I'm guessing you didn't like Drives.
You just don't want to hear my opinion.
I'm guessing we're gonna hear it after I tally the results.
Yeah,
It's
ask his opinion
like-
after.
yeah. It's a, like, there. I'll say it was pretty strong on both sides. Like,
I mean, out of honestly, like both of these movies, I really like. I really love these both movies
Yeah,
for different
same
reasons,
here,
but
same
I do
here.
love
And
these both movies.
I'll say mine after the tally.
okay, yeah.
I'm just sad that the Nice Guys wasn't picked, because man, that's my favorite Ryan Gosling.
Look, it's another one of those things I need to give another shot to, dude. I just not a big Shane
First
Black
5
guy,
minutes.
and Gerald Butler is. I see him as that, action guy too. So I don't know. I need to rewatch it.
All right, so the tally is in.
Oh,
Are we ready?
Drum roll,
And-
please.
The winner is.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, what do you know? It stopped recording like half an hour ago, and we just lost all that. I think we need to redo the debate.
You know what? I'm not surprised, but I'm also a little disappointed, man. I feel like. All right, what's the verdict, Alon?
See, the thing is, I feel like, okay, well, for Drive, I mean, I gave points for the fact that, there is something to be said about an actor exploring his range, trying things that are out of his comfort zone, but there's also something to be said as far as points on refining that to the point that when you're being thought of for other films, you can shortlist an actor for somebody who can do that archetype really well. For as much as we want to say that that's not something that, like anybody could jump into that role, he did it to a point where it brought iconicism to the film, and it's something that brings iconicism to that type of character type that you would go and look at that for that kind of study. You're seeing range here in, La La Land. I mean, you're bringing up Oscar nods, and I mean, a lot of what brings that kind of iconicism to the film is just the fact that the film's really well put together from cinematography, choreography, everything else, but it's not like he's standing out as being like essential for that role. Or at least you didn't fight for it enough there.
Yeah.
You fought for Seb's character, and that's one thing, but you didn't fight for Gosling being Seb. And you made it so hard at the very end because, yeah, I mean, the fact that he did push himself to the limit as far as like what he could learn, his range, the abilities he has, and what people are seeing that, there's more life in him than just the silent guy role. That made it really difficult. But the fact that, he's so iconic for Drive, and it's really one of those things that anybody else could have played, and it would have brought the film down further, where it would have been talked about less. I mean, you kind of shot yourself in the foot by saying he made it where then it could be talked about as far as like a good film audience, where it's not just action and all that. So yeah, it was a really hard toss up, but I'm gonna give it to Drive. Get to drive.
Fair enough. I mean, like I said, it's one of those things where
I thought I was gonna lose.
I'm not.
Your last argument was good.
It was really good, but you shot yourself in the foot.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest in those moments. It's give credit where credit is due. I'm notorious for not liking films that a lot of people love, so it doesn't surprise me. Drive just didn't do it for me, man. It didn't.
Yeah.
I like something that Alejandro from Rebels said on the other podcast, like when we talked about Casablanca and Citizen Kane. He's like, you know what, man, Casablanca just floats my boat more than Citizen Kane does, and it's just that route. I don't know, just Drive doesn't do it for me.
Also, if you think about it, staying true to the Tower Crown, it's not the films that are these beautiful masterpieces, but it's the people who are able to enjoy it more. We didn't win like 2001 Space Odyssey and Gravity. The win went to Gravity, and it's just because it was something that people could connect with more than 2000.
Right, that's the motto of the Tower Crown. Is it's not necessarily the best film. It's who argues what's better.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, you know what? I have a lot of friends that'll punch me in the nuts for saying that La La Land is better than Drive. I do. One of them being Eric Sanchez and Francisco and all these guys. But I don't care. That's just what floats my boat more, man.
Opinion is opinion, and that's why we're here. We're here to love movies.
All right.
Beautiful sentiment to end the show there, Mr. Yokomoto. We're here to love movies. Thank you guys for listening in. This one ran a little long. If you're a fan of or a supporter, I should say, of the show, then you don't care. So we appreciate that. If you're not and you're barely listening to this hour and 45 episode, then we apologize.
We're sorry.
Thank you as well, because it means a lot that you actually took the time to listen to this far.
Yeah, you put this on while sweeping the kitchen. Thank you for sweeping just a little bit longer to finish the episode.
There you go. And I love that we can coin the word squeeping now.
Sweeping.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Remember that you can listen to this show on any major podcast platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Thank you for tuning in on YouTube and Facebook as well. Make sure to share this, guys. Share the Towercast Network. Check out the Instagram. That's where all the news is going up, especially this year. We're kind of almost strictly transitioning to the Towercast Network because we got more film announcements for Tower Productions as in terms of filmmaking. So that's coming up on the Tower Productions site, but on the Towercast Network, make sure to check that out. Share with your friends, man. If you love cinema and if your friends love cinema, then hopefully they'll enjoy this show. So make sure to check that out. I want to thank my lovely co-hosts, Christian Yokomoto Medina, Michael Dalao, Austin Young for being in here. Castro, we missed you, buddy, but we'll see you on the next one. We have a very exciting episode, mostly because it's my pick. And it's the most pretentious. My film choices are the most pretentious, so take that how you will.
I like this. I like that we're finally figuring out our flow. You're the most pretentious. I'm the hidden gems. Yokomoto is just, they're great films. We can't complain.
You can't deny the greatness.
Yeah, we can't deny the greatness. And Austin, we got a perfect team right here. Look at
I'm pretty
that.
sure Austin's
And
going to bring
Castro.
in Tenet at some point. He's going to want to do Tenet, and I think we should.
Well, that episode's going to be completely inverted, so.
Oh, great.
Oh, my God. Just to spite people.
Thank you for tuning into the WatchTower Podcast. Keep watching cinema. We'll see you next time.
Take care, everybody.